Ferguson. How you feeling about that, Memphis? I'm Deidre Malone, and you're watching Dialogue with Deidre. We're going to be talking about Ferguson, what happened with the grand jury, and what's happened in terms of the aftermath of the announcement. I have Dee Harris, who is a political consultant, is on the show for the first half hour of the show. And then we want to know what young people think about what's going on, not just in Ferguson, but with injustice, we believe, across this country when it comes to young African Americans. We're going to be talking to Lauren Evans, who is an associate here at the Carter Malone Group, as well as Brian Malone, who's also an associate here at the Carter Malone Group. You're watching Dialogue with Deidre. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it.
While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed ours.
Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Wow, tell around your drugstore, and your drugstore. Hey, we everyone's drugstore. And we're located at 3333 East Chevy Drive, 794-3690. All medical plans. We support supported living, assisted living. We do it all. And guess what? We even have a $4 plan. Hey, call and ask Dr. Brown about that. I gotta go because she's coming with those boots.
The Carter Malone Group is a full-service public relations agency. Celebrating 10 years of being in business, the Carter Malone Group is located in Midtown Memphis and represents clients across the country. No matter what size your business, if you are interested in promoting your product or service and increasing your market share, contact the firm that can help you meet your goals. The Carter Malone Group. Call 901-278-0881 today.
And now let's take some questions from the public.
Mr. Chairman, why do we keep cutting back on education?
Governor, you want to take that question?
Mr. Chairman, let's give this one to the Senate Majority Leader.
Since this matter was taken up in AB 3712, I think it best if I defer to the Assembly Majority Leader.
Actually, pursuant to Department of Education statutes, the State Secretary of Education would be more qualified to answer. Mr. Secretary.
My legal team has advised me not to comment at this time, so I'll humbly refer to our State Superintendent of Schools.
Pass. Definitely pass. Okay, County Superintendent.
Well, young lady, it's just too complicated.
Can you tell me who's responsible for my education?
That is a good question. Governor?
Repeat the question, please.
I don't see why I can't get an answer from
You're asking a lot of difficult questions.
Oh, she sure is.
Who are you?
Well, I'm the governor.
What is this?
Your 2 minutes are up.
Stop the circus. Contact your legislators at thisbudgetblows.com.
Missouri, you all, I'm sure, were just like me, sitting in front of the TV set with my 2 African-American sons, waiting for the interview that Mr. Wilson had last night with ABC. Just stunned at the fact that it appeared to me that there was no remorse. You were also probably like me, sitting in front of the TV set waiting for the prosecutor, Bob McCullough, to come and read what the grand jury findings were. And we're going to talk about that right now with political strategist, political analyst, political consultant, and my good friend, the young Dee Harris. Dee Harris, welcome to Dialogue with Deidre.
Thank you, Deidre. Not so young, Dee.
I just want to clean that up, viewers, because I announced the other 2 guests that are going to be on in the second half hour, and I call them young, but Dee is young in his own right. So, Dee, I'm sure that when you watched the prosecutor come back and say that they were not going to advance any indictment on Officer Wilson, what were your thoughts?
I wasn't surprised. That actually had been building up for a while. Based on all of the information that was going on out there, the National Guard coming in, the governor getting involved, the calls for calm throughout Ferguson, I felt like, die was already cast. They've already made the decision. Wasn't surprised much at all. I was surprised at the time that they chose to make the statement. I thought that was a bad time. The timing was really bad. I think the body language was bad. With respect to the interview from the officer, I'm going to give him a pass this way. I think that he's been coached the whole way. He's had plenty of time to come up with his story. I'm sure his legal team has told him to stick with it, be stern about it, and be unapologetic, because that creates the best legal framework for him. So good books say you reap what you sow. So I do think that somewhere down deep inside of him, if there is some humanity, he has to feel bad in some way.
But so the professional side of me, what I do for a living, I own a PR marketing and advertising firm, and we deal with clients all the day in crisis issues. And my advice to him, not being an attorney, but my advice to him still would have been to be firm on, if you believe you did the right thing, state that, but also show some level of remorse because you did actually kill someone. And so I'm going to tell you that I was so not impressed with that interview, but most importantly, I was so disappointed with the prosecutor's comments because, in my opinion, it was an indictment on the young Michael Brown. It talked about what was alleged about him. It talked about the number of witnesses and just spent, in my opinion, about 15 minutes trying to discredit witnesses when it should have been about what the grand jury thought and why they actually felt like it was not important to move forward with an indictment.
Well, there's a court of the court of law and the court of public opinion. I think that I agree that the prosecutor in this case behaved terribly. I don't think he did his job, but in a sense, maybe he did do his job. Maybe his job was to do exactly what he did. From what I gather, he's been the prosecutor there for many years, and maybe that's what people want. What this speaks to me is really more of a cultural issue in America of the dehumanization of African American men and young men, black men in particular. And there is a culture in America, there's a fear factor, there's a misunderstanding factor, and then there's this overall mindset among police and law enforcement that black men are something that they're people that need to be dealt with in a certain way. And there's just been a history in America of this dominance by white male culture and that others have to obey. And so you get a lot of these guys in these police departments, whether it be white or black, but primarily white officers, and they're brought into that culture. And it's almost bigger than it's bigger than Wilson. It's bigger than this case. Baby was shot a few weeks ago. There's a culture of distrust and fear, unnecessary fear, among black males that creates this kind of environment. I think that this could have been any city in America. This happens so much, and I think that's why you see so much outrage. People are sort of fed up with it. It's not just Michael Brown that they're fed up with. They're fed up with the thought of whether he was good or bad or whatever you want to think about Michael Brown, he was a human being. And this whole dehumanization of African American men, particularly young black men, there is a culture in white America that I don't think that they really even admit, many of them.
Well, I'm the mother of two young African American men, and I remember when they were growing up, I would tell my husband, and I would tell my boys then, and I would tell their teachers, which when they saw Mrs. Malone coming, they knew, because I knew that we were raising two young African American men, and they were going to have challenges as adults that a lot of African American women, of course white women and white men, don't have. And it is a burden, quite frankly, because you're competing for opportunities against females, be it white, black, or male. You're going to have to be 10 times better. I used to tell my boys, but I also would tell them that, and I would tell their teachers this, I'm not going to let you affect them, because what's important to me is that they have a sense of who they are, that they have a right to any job opportunity that they are interested in, and they have to have a level of self-esteem. And I think we have to continue to teach our young black men and women that you are somebody, you should shoot for the stars, and in this environment you're going to be told no, people are going to try and beat you down because you are African American, but you have to know your worth. And I think as parents we have to start doing more of that.
What I find really, really troublesome is young black people, whether it be young black men in this case in particular, or young black women for that matter, don't have an opportunity to make the mistakes and make dumb mistakes. In other words, young people do dumb things.
Right.
I saw an event up in New Hampshire. There was a pumpkin festival. Young white kids rioted, tore up stuff, fighting, burned building, did all kind of crazy stuff. It was young people doing stupid stuff. So when white America sees young white people doing stuff, bad things, They want to hold them accountable. I'm not saying they want to let them go. But they also see it as young people doing stupid stuff. When young black folks do stupid stuff, they're scarred for life. That young white boy that set something on fire at the pumpkin event, he'll get to go on and be CEO potentially one day of a Fortune 500 company.
And he'll get diversion.
Yeah, if he gets diversion. But even if he went to, there is still going to be a pathway for him to succeed. And where young black people, they're scarred for life for making one bad decision and being stupid and being young. Because part of being young is making bad decisions. That's part of growing up. And unfortunately, America, and this is a cultural thing in America, and if I was to make any appeal to white America is, young black people need to have the same opportunities to make mistakes, do foolish things, and then grow from them, be held accountable, not necessarily be let off, but also have an opportunity to grow. But let me jump on, I'm defending young black people. But what I would say to young folks is the destruction of property, you can't, from a spiritual standpoint, you can't fix unrighteousness with unrighteousness.
Right.
And destruction of property, stealing stuff and looting, that makes you a thief. That doesn't make you a protester. And if you want to change things, then you change laws by changing the people that make the laws. And you change the people by making the laws, by being involved in organizing and voting. There was a riot on November 4th among white conservative voters, mostly older ones. They had a riot. They went out and voted all these Republicans in office. When they want change, they just quietly go about getting change. When we want change, we think we have to be unorganized. We think we have to be loud. We think we have to go the street route. There may be a time for protests, but there also should be a time for organizing, getting involved in the process, and changing the community that you live in. You can't change it by being unengaged. And quite frankly, from a percent standpoint of voting, young people don't vote. Come Friday, call it Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are the most angry, many of them are going to be the first ones at the mall. If you're really mad at the system, then we ought to start holding the system that prop up these lawmakers and laws, hold them accountable. If we can't take it out on the Darren Wilson of this world, we sure can take it out on the companies that fund the politicians who draw up the laws that give Darren Wilson the right to do the things he can. Walmart, we're going to take it out on you.
So we're talking about economic protesting.
Right.
Boycotting.
Young black men say they can't find jobs. You got on $300 shoes. We're not going to buy $300 shoes unless Nike puts the plant in our neighborhood. The people in China are buying the shoes. We are. So we should be the ones having the jobs. So until we get to a point where we can organize ourselves around some principles that really hit at the heart of the matter, we live in a capitalistic society. Nothing is going to change until the capital structure, the capital formation, and the wealth creation system changes.
I'm glad you said that because that's an excellent point. We are out, marching, we're protesting, we're burning down, businesses that some of them are probably African-American owned because they're in our community.
They left them to fend for themselves.
And, and some of us may not have insurance to be able to rebuild. So we're devastating other African-American lives.
Well, that's all we're left to do. It is the whole culture of violence. In other words, the reason why we kill each other is we're isolated. So there's nobody else left to attack and kill. They're not going to let us go out to Germantown or other places or in the suburbs of St. Louis, Missouri to go out and do things. They're not going to let them go outside and burn those buildings down.
Well, we're killing each other because we don't have opportunities for adequate education and opportunities for jobs. Good jobs, not just, making minimum wage jobs. We're killing each other because we don't have those opportunities and we need more of them, D.
But I think it's cultural too. I think that this starts with, first, a spiritual grounding.
Exactly.
As my pastor said, you're not going to have a safe community until you have a safe community. That's just my own personal opinion. I wouldn't want to push that off anybody else. So first things first. First, we've got to get ourselves back under the gird of the word. Secondly, we've got to strengthen the family. Now, there are a lot of do-gooders out there, a lot of liberal policies out there that want to help with education. And they think that if we just educate the children, it'll be fine. They'll give vouchers to poor black kids that go to a private school. They'll give them charter schools. But they won't get their dad a job at Electrolux.
Right.
So if you want to help poor black children, then you've got to address the needs and the concerns of the parents from homes that they come from. So I think that it's a holistic approach. The jobs don't come first. First things come first. Look, we got to clean up our lives, change our attitudes. Can't come to the job high, can't fail the drug test. So that's home and cultural. Then the second thing we got to do is prepare ourselves for the jobs that we need. And then the third thing we got to do is demand that. We make it to a point where it's not, we make our own job. This idea that we're going to thrive in a capitalistic society and not own anything is a silly notion anyway. So it's got to be about getting ourselves right inside spiritually. 2, strengthening our family. And thirdly, because a fool and his money will part. If you just start handing out money to black folks and great jobs, and they're not prepared, or black folks, or white folks, or people in general, then a fool and his money gonna part. So we got to fix the first things first.
Okay, and so how do we start doing that today?
Look, I think that the marching and the protest is good. It's good for young people to start getting engaged. Now, the looting, that's another thing. But the fact that young people are interested and engaged, that's good. Let's get interested, let's get engaged. Now, when we get through with this, let's do something about it. Can't be like Occupy Wall Street. You do something good, and then you stop. Get engaged, get organized. The first thing I would say is all these young folks, many of the people that are burning down stuff and are the angriest, they probably didn't vote November 4th. So if you're really mad, if we're really going to flood the streets and have people lined up around the block, then we need to be lined up around the block at the polls. I don't care what kind of barriers they put in front of us. If we have to come out there at 5 o'clock in the morning to vote, then that's what we need to do. You're not going to change the laws that empower Darren Wilson until you change the lawmakers that create the laws that empower Darren Wilson. You're not going to change the lawmakers if you don't vote. You can burn down every building in the town. It's not going to make a difference.
Maybe that's the campaign, because I think that there's a disconnect between, specifically with our young people, and we'll ask to young people when they're on the second part of this show. Maybe there's a disconnect because maybe they feel like me going to the polls and voting for a potential candidate doesn't really have an effect on justice.
No, I think that. I do believe that. And that's why I would encourage more young people to get involved and run themselves.
Exactly.
Young people, look, let me just be frank. The old coots, and I probably shouldn't have used that term, the old guard is not going to get out of the way. Power concedes nothing without demand. Nobody's going to give you this power that you seek.
I tell my boys that all the time.
You're going to have to take it.
You're going to have to take it.
And the old guard is not going to give up political power because they become intoxicated by it. Now, they'll pass it down to their sons, and that's another daughters. That's another story for another time. But this is a time that young people have to engage, and if it's something they want, they got to, one, be prepared to take it, and then take it.
Last question for you, Dee, because I know you've got to get out of here. If you're the parents of Michael Brown, what would be your next steps? Would you just stop? You're still mourning for your son. Would you move forward with any other, with some, legal action? Would you start a foundation? Would you, what would you do?
That is the hardest question you asked today. All the other questions I could come up with a quick answer. But because, we all know young people, that's a tough one. I don't know. I would certainly not want my son or my child's life to be in vain.
Exactly.
So I think, one, they should be the champions for peace in the streets. And if you say you're protesting because of Michael Brown, then you ought to respect the family. And we don't want his legacy to be burned down buildings in Ferguson. 2, I think they need to seek some type of civil lawsuit, which I think they are. And then thirdly, I think they probably should start some kind of foundation for a legacy for him, so that his life and the loss of his life will go on in the future. Maybe draft some kind. I heard there was some kind of legislation that's going to be trying to be drafted, but so that the last memory that people have 15, 20 years down the road is he was just another black kid that got shot down the street by a police officer. And let me lastly say this. I think that police officers can be jerks and not be racist at the same time. We don't know if Darren Wilson is a racist or not, but we know he shouldn't be a police officer. People with cowardice heart shouldn't be, too much is given, much is required, says the good book. And police officers and district attorney offices and the power structure, they've been given massive power over the people. They have a responsibility to manage that and dispense that in a righteous way. If they don't, they're in the wrong business.
I absolutely agree with you as someone whose father was a Chicago police officer, uncle Chicago police officer, brother Chicago police officer. I get it, and they do. They have a really high responsibility as a public servant. And so we're just going to continue to pray for the Brown family. Dee Harris, thank you so much for coming back and being on Dialogue with Deidre.
Thank you.
If you have any comments for Dee Harris, please post them on the Dialogue with Deidre Facebook page or email me. I will definitely share those comments.
The good post now.
The good post. I'm going to share the bad post too. Deidre at DeidreMalone.com. We'll make sure that we get those to him. Again, thanks, Dee, and we'll have you back on. You already know.
All right.
In the next half hour of this show, Lauren Evans, Brian Malone, we're going to continue our conversation on Ferguson, and then we're going to just ask them, what do they think young people need to be doing now in the aftermath of what happened in Ferguson? You're watching Dialogue with Deidre. I'm Deidre Malone. We'll be back in a moment.
Arm Candy, and on behalf of MUTV1, we would like to wish you a happy holiday and many more to come. Stay beautiful.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it.
While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed ours.
Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Wow, Teller Brown is your drugstore, and your drugstore. Hey, we everyone's drugstore. And we're located at 3333 East Chevy Drive, 794-3690. All medical plans. We support supported living, assisted living. We do it all. And guess what? We even have a $4 plan. Hey, call to ask Dr. Brown about that. I gotta go because she's coming with those boots.
The Carter Malone Group is a full-service public relations agency. Celebrating 10 years of being in business, the Carter Malone Group is located in Midtown Memphis and represents clients across the country. No matter what size your business, if you are interested in promoting your product or service and increasing your market share, contact the firm that can help you meet your goals. The Carter Malone Group. Call 901-278-0881 today.
And now let's take some questions from the public.
Mr. Chairman, why do we keep cutting back on education?
Governor, you want to take that question?
Mr. Chairman, let's give this one to the Senate Majority Leader.
Since this matter was taken up in AB 3712, I think it best if I defer to the Assembly Majority Leader.
Actually, pursuant to Department of Education statutes, the State Secretary of Education would be more qualified to answer. Mr. Secretary.
My legal team has advised me not to comment at this time, so I'll humbly refer to our State Superintendent of Schools.
Pass. Definitely pass. Okay, County Superintendent.
Well, young lady, it's just too complicated.
Can you tell me who's responsible for my education?
That is a good question. Governor?
Repeat the question, please.
I don't see why I can't get an answer from
You're asking a lot of difficult questions.
Oh, she sure is.
Who are you?
Well, I'm the governor.
What is this?
Your 2 minutes are up.
Stop the circus. Contact your legislators at thisbudgetblows.com.
Continuing our discussion about Ferguson, Missouri, and what happened earlier this week, and the guest this half hour. Of course, you're watching Dialogue with Deidre. I'm Deidre Malone. The guest this hour, Lauren Evans. Lauren is a young professional here at the Carter Malone Group, community activist, and Brian Malone, also professional here at the Carter Malone Group and young professional. Both of you, welcome to Dialogue with Deidre.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we've had very healthy discussions here at CMG about what happened in Ferguson, and I just wanted the audience to get a young perspective, because since I'm so old these days and radical, I just want to know, Lauren, why don't you start first? What do you think about the announcement coming out of Ferguson in terms of the lack of an indictment? Officer Wilson.
First off, I'm going to say it hurt as a young black woman, seeing my brothers, my cousins, the guys that I date, deal with, or even planning a family in the future. It hurt. I'll say that much. But I'll also echo what Dee Harris just said, that this starts with us. We've got to start making an impact at the polls. We've got to start making an impact with our dollars. I know the new Jordans come out Friday, but I would love to see folks go shop at black-owned businesses instead of being at those big box stores like Macy's and Goldsmiths, who line the pockets of the people who excuse those types of things that happen.
Excellent point. Brian, your thoughts?
I'd also like to echo what Dee said. It's just a sad situation. I mean, it sends the message to kids that you should be afraid of police, and police are here to protect you.
Are you afraid?
I'm not afraid, but it sends a message to kids that, police will kill you at any given time. And I think this will ignite fire in young people, I hope, to get involved in the political process, because the district attorney, the prosecutor, has been unopposed since 1991.
And he's been in office that long.
Over 20 years.
In Ferguson.
Over 20 years. And I believe there's a lot of capable attorneys that can fill that office, as well as other offices around the country. So everyone needs to get involved and do their part.
Lauren, I think you wanted to add something.
When you asked Brian, was he scared, and he said no. He might not be scared, but I'm scared for him. He's sitting here with the suit and tie on right now. But if he wants to be comfortable and go to the mall or even just walk down his street, walk the dog in a hoodie, he is automatically a vicious black man.
Exactly.
So he's saying he's not scared, but I fear for him because there's absolutely no reason that he shouldn't be able to do what someone who has blonde hair and blue eyes can do without being a threat.
That's an excellent point. Brian, you remember we were talking with my other son, Kirk, the other day, and Kirk, of course, is like 6'1", he has dreads, and he said, Mom, still, if I'm walking, in the airport, people stare at me, and there's just a level, sometimes I believe, of people feeling uncomfortable, thinking that all African American men, and in some instances young women, depending upon how they dress or how they wear their hair, are stereotyped. And so knowing that, how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel like a stranger in the country that I live in. I think moving forward, we need to figure out what we can do as young black men and young black women to cope with this and to deal with it. I mean, it's just sad that, it's just sad that we're living in this situation.
I know that I was watching NBC News last night, and Brian Williams had 5 African American young men on, and he was asking them what did they think about the situation in Ferguson, and how do they feel in this country that they were born in, being African American males. And they said that, no matter how, good they are, how their grades are good, or how they try and stay on the straight and narrow, they're always going to be perceived as someone that is, maybe going to attack someone else, or someone that is a criminal. And how do you guys as young people try and turn that stereotype around?
And I think you point to the system. Black people make up 13% of the U.S. population, right? So you can explain to me why we make up 60% of the incarcerated individuals in this country. It's oppression in so many forms. I mean, we really need to engage in a dialogue that will solve these problems.
So do you think it's economics, Brian? You think it's jobs? Of course, all of us have had family members who've been incarcerated. Right. And I think about Doc Hutchinson did a show on Black Thought the other day when he talked about those incarceration numbers, but he also talked about the injustice and inequality in sentencing. Okay. I remember, there have been times where African Americans have been picked up for obtaining and holding crack cocaine, right, where a white counterpart may have had powder cocaine, right, and the African American gets 30 years, the white individual with the powder cocaine may get 2. There is an inequality in the justice system. So as young people, how do we resolve that?
I say we tear it down and start fresh. We need to go out and we need to vote. Again, like D. Harris said, we've got to get those people who've been in office and have gotten comfortable and are just enjoying their power. We've got to get them out of there. We've got to get some young voices in there that represent us accurately, people who can change those things. We've got prosecutors and DAs who are on the police's side when they're very clearly in the wrong, and there's not a whole lot that we can do about it. We can march, we can protest all day long, but unless we get out en masse in big numbers and vote and make things change, I hate to say it, but we're stuck.
Brian, your thoughts?
And I don't want to get into my conspiracy about how crack cocaine was introduced into our communities. That's for another show.
That's my son.
But I do believe that that the sentencing is unjust. I don't think a bag of weed should get you jail time.
Okay, so then
another show.
Okay, so I think that everything that you're saying is right on point. And as I look at the two of you, young, professional, educated, as you were sitting there and looking at Officer Wilson's interview.
Let's call him Darren. I'm serious. We're not going to call him an officer. We won't dignify him like that because he got on national television and called Michael Brown a monster and Hulk, the Incredible Hulk. So he dehumanized him. His name is Darren.
Okay, so Darren, what did you think when you saw Darren's interview?
It turned my stomach. I couldn't watch the whole thing. I don't even think he deserved primetime TV to defend himself. I mean, he's already told enough, I guess I'm going to call them lies. As far as what he told the grand jury, his side of the story, unfortunately, Michael Brown didn't get to tell his side of the story. There were witnesses that did try to tell his side, and they were counted as incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he deserved the time on TV, but for him to go on national television and say, I felt like I was being attacked by a beast, and to call him Hulk, he was like the Incredible Hulk. He
said he looked like a demon. He looked like a demon, yeah.
He was the same 6 feet 4 inches as Darren. So there was not a huge size difference that made him any more intimidating than somebody that might have been white that was walking down the street. It was unfair, it was sickening, and he just seemed to not even have any remorse had it been an accidental shooting. If he didn't mean it, he still took a life, and he doesn't seem to care about it.
Brian, I know we watched it, you, Kirk, and I, together. What were your thoughts?
I saw zero remorse in his eyes. I believe the eyes tell you a lot. He looked cold, and he looked like he wanted to pursue a life after this. He said, I think, if I quote, he wanted to start over and get a fresh start. And I'll go back to what the prosecutor said.
What did he say?
How he was trying to tear down Mike Brown, assassinate his character, while not indicting the other gentleman, Darren Wilson or Darren. And I just think it's pitiful. I'm really disappointed in our justice system, and I really hope that this fires up some people to go to law school. I'm even thinking about it myself. But what do we do?
Well, you go to law school. You go to law school, and you become elected. You too, decide that you want to get elected, and you help change some laws.
Right.
And you work with other young folk to do the same.
And it's never too late.
It's never too late. It is never too late. So I am just so proud of the two of you. I also want to thank you both publicly, because when I ran for county mayor, you guys worked so hard on the Malone for Mayor campaign, and I don't know who was more devastated in us not being successful, me or the two of you.
Right.
So what did you take away, Lauren, from that experience? Was that your first time working on a campaign?
It was.
It was?
You thanked us, but I want to thank you for running, for seeing the need in Shelby County and putting yourself out there to be mayor. It was interesting working the campaign. It was a lot of hard work, but I think it was necessary work, and I don't think the work is done. We still got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of changes that need to be made, obviously. We've got to get rid of that apathy that's in the African American community. We've got to get out and vote, and if this week, or if Mike Brown or Trayvon or Renisha McBride didn't make you feel something, I don't know. We've got to change some things, and it's not over. that's not my last campaign.
Good.
I'm ready for the next one, and I really want to think of some ways that folks like Brian, young folks like Brian and myself, can do to get young voters out to make things happen.
Because that's going to be so important. That's going to be so important. Brian, what did you take away?
I'm ready for another run. Like I tell you all the time, I think this city would need a mayor like you. But that's for another show also. But I think that you did a good job of expressing your message to the county. I think that what we could do better is maybe fund the campaign a little better, get a little bit more money, because the opponent was on TV every 2 seconds.
Right, exactly.
But that doesn't detract from your message. I mean, it was heartbreaking. I mean, you had such a good platform and such a good message to deliver to the community that I just can't believe we fell short. Still to this day I can't believe it, but you know, the people get who they elect. They deserve who they elect.
Well, and I think, you know, now that the election's over, I think it is incumbent upon us, and specifically young folk like yourself, to make sure that you look at what's going on in the county. Right. Make sure that if there are things that you feel passionately about, be it funding for health care, funding for education, opportunities for jobs, that you look at what they're doing and you go down there and you speak to it. You advocate for it. Because if you guys don't hold the county mayor, the county commission, city mayor, city council accountable, and our state representatives, then shame on you. Because you need to step up, and I know you will. So at this time, I want to thank you both for coming on Dialogue with Deidre. I think I've been asking you guys for a while. So I'm so glad that you decided to come together. And this is not going to be your last show. We're going to find opportunities for you to come back, because I think that young voices are very important, and you guys are outstanding young professionals, and people need to know who you are. So thanks again for coming on Dialogue with Deidre.
Thanks for having us.
So I hope you have enjoyed our show today. It was meaningful dialogue, and we'll be back on Monday. I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. I hope you'll spend quality time with your family. And let me just say, I'm on this health kick, so don't eat too much. Eat enough. Monitor your sweets, and get outside and exercise after you eat your turkey dinner. God bless, and I'll see you on Monday. You're watching Dialogue with Deidre.